Hi, good morning to everyone who joined us, and good afternoon from Singapore, where I'm based. My name is Benson Lim. I'm the co-chair of the C.Arb Singapore branch YMG. Today, I'm very honored to be here presenting to you about the Student Open Day membership, and for about 45 minutes. And thereafter we have an esteemed panel from Singapore as well as from Victoria, who are fellows and chartered arbitrators of C.Arb, to tell you more about the experience as well as to share more about career opportunities. You're welcome in the text function to send us questions, and throughout this entire presentation, I will also be happy to entertain any questions you might have after the presentation. So you can always drop me an email to ask me more about how to be a member of C.Arb. So I'm going to start without further ado on our slides about the Student Open Day. Like I said, welcome everyone. So let's a quick thought about what C.Arb is. We are the full name of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, and we have a growing membership with an international network of 41 branches to date, and that includes branches across Europe, Africa, Asia, as well as the Americas. Now, C.Arb has a range of resources, including like guidance and support, advice, networking, and promotion of this. And in terms of, we are a not-for-profit. Sorry, just a moment. Sorry, just a moment. All right, so apologies for that delay. So if you want to learn more about us, you can visit www.ciarb.org. Now, in terms of figures, we have 16,500 members across 149 countries. As I've said, I am the co-chair of the YMG in Singapore branch, and we're very proud of the fact that we have over 4,000 young members in over 100 countries. Now, I started my journey with C.Arb when I first graduated out of law school, and I'm very proud to say that C.Arb is indeed an organization for young members like you who are interested in the practice of arbitration. Now, what is interesting about C.Arb is that it's a global network of like-minded and qualified people. If you go through the pathways in C.Arb, you will learn a lot about not just the theory of arbitration, but also the practice of arbitration. And over the years, we're now over 8,000 students who are registered. And we say that this number can be more because it is free membership for all students at the start. Our strategic aims are really to globally promote the constructive resolution of disputes. Second is to be a global and inclusive thought leader. By inclusive, we mean more than just from your background, your gender diversity, as well as in terms of thought diversity. So we encourage that. We want to be a thought leader in international arbitration and ADR as well. And last of our aim is to develop and support an inclusive global community of diverse dispute resolve. Now, I would say that if you are part of C.Arb, you have people, you have fellows, you have chartered arbitrators who are more than keen to support you in your growth as an arbitration practitioner. It is this network that C.Arb we're really proud of. So our values, we have 4 key values. 1, ownership and accountability. We take responsibility for our decisions. Dignity and respect. As I've said, I'm really proud that we treat all individuals with respect. We value everyone's contribution and we recognize the importance of diversity, which is why we are really big and we believe in being inclusive above everything else. 3rd, professionalism. Professionalism, we're talking about working mutually with a clear sense of commitment, perspective, direction in the best interest of C.Arb to achieve our charitable aims. And 4th, which is the loyalty and trust, which is on which our relationship, meaningful, personal, as well as professional relationships are built. Now, so just a bit of history about C.Arb. Now, C.Arb was founded in 1915. Was granted a royal charter in 1979. Now, today, it is the only membership body globally that oversees the global promotion and facilitation and development of all forms of private dispute resolution. About 6 years ago, we celebrated our centenary year with flagship events held around the world. But what is that as students, if you're on this call as a student or just starting on a legal practice, what is important about C.Arb is the fact that they have various branches. You have chapters as well around the world. So you can take part in activities that are organized by your branch or by the chapter in your area. Now, what are the different membership types? I'm a fellow, that is the highest level qualification for experienced practitioners. But I started out like all of you as an associate member. Now, student membership is ideal for those studying at university or any institutional, higher educational institution anywhere in the world. As long as you have an interest in ADR, it's a free membership. And I will show you in this way how you can sign up for student membership. Now, for non-students, like you start off with associate. So you complete one of the introductory courses, or you have a minimum of 6 months of experience in ADR. Thereafter, you progress to member. That's a member of Chartered Institute Arbitrators, and finally to fellow. Chartered Arbitrator, on which today on our panel we're lucky to have, is Francis Xavier, Senior Counsel. Now, he is a Chartered Arbitrator. A Chartered Arbitrator is someone who has demonstrated to an interview panel advanced knowledge and understanding arbitration and its practical application with their experience and evidence in his professional approach to parties and the public interest. Like I said, student membership is free. Once you're a student member, you have access to a range of benefits, including discounts on training courses. And then in this day and age, it's online access to a variety of resources. I will also say one more. It is access to events, not pretty much like today, but also courses that run by C.Arb for our younger members around the world. So the other benefits we have includes the C.Arb e-learning courses, the competitions, opportunities to have your work published in it. We also have all the various branch activities, competitions, which might result if you are winning. In some cases, some of the competitions even allow you to publish your journals, academic journal entries. And for example, the C.Arb peer review academic journal called the Journal of International Arbitration, Mediation and Dispute Management. It's also an opportunity to meet other younger practitioners through C.Arb's Young Members Group. Being a co-chair, I can say that our Young Members Group is one of the most active organizations in all the whole arbitration world. We organize events, we put together, for example, like the Supper Club, where we invite senior practitioners to mingle with younger practitioners like you. And on top of that, we also, being part of a member, we also make sure that you keep up to date with the latest industry news through our Resolver. Now it's all online, and monthly e-Solver newsletter as well. So what is YMG open to? YMG is open to all members aged 40 and under. And it's also open to student members like you. Sometimes we have exclusive events. We have annual conference, we have training days, workshops, competitions, opportunities to have your arbitration work promoted online. Like I said, on top of that, it's not just interaction between younger members, but we also ensure that you have, as a student member, an opportunity to interact directly with senior arbitration practitioners out there. For example, like today, when we have our panel, there's esteemed members of the arbitration community who take the time to share with you their thoughts and offer you some broad advice on how best you can advance your arbitration career. The young members group is overseen by a global steering committee. Again, is to ensure that our activities are targeted at young practitioners across the globe. And that's just what the key benefit of being part of a global organization like C.Arb. Our qualifications, you can see C.Arb is Associate of the Chartered Institute Arbitrators, C.Arb Member, C.Arb Fellow. They are recognized globally in the ADR community. Now, I'm a practicing lawyer and a practicing counsel in arbitration team in an international firm. And I can say for once that we do recognize global recognition such as C.Arb when we look at candidates for our arbitration team. Now, qualifications can be obtained by completing one of our membership courses. So, for example, you could have a membership training courses, which is where I started from. Membership assessment courses are for those people who have experience in practice and then be assessed and qualified. I would say that it's been well run for many years, and we constantly update our program to make sure that our programs, our membership training programs, are of the latest caliber in the global field. So Pathways is one of them. So if I briefly show it to you, you have the domestic arbitration pathway, the national arbitration pathway, the construction adjudication pathway, and the mediation pathway. But you will see that as you progress through each modules, rigorous testing, and also the opportunity during the course to meet people like you who are interested in the particular area of ADR. Whereupon, when you reach Fellow of Chartered Institute Arbitrators, that's when before that, you have to go through a peer interview as well. I would say being a student member, one of the key things is that you have opportunity to develop skills. I think today is about learning. I think learning is a critical part of it. And that's what C.Arb does really well. We have e-modules in award writing. That's for pretty much for later when you are thinking of becoming an arbitrator. Avoiding and resolving disputes, talking about brand protection, online introduction to ADR, online introduction to mediation. We have an audio book and courses in development as well. Like, for example, tribunal secretary training, negotiating training, expert witness training. But there's so much more than that. Like I said, we have seminars, we have workshops that we see organized through its branches and chapters that you can be part of as long as you are a student member of C.Arb. So there is this upcoming student package offer, but right now, I mean, this will eventually will reach out to you, more information provided, but I just thought to put it right out there to let you know there is a student package offer. So that is to be discussed. You can come to our website. If you want to know more, please feel free to write to us, and we're more than happy to entertain your questions. So this is just the website. I'm not going to go through in detail, but you can see at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, that is the URL, ciarb.org/training. All the details, the latest updates will be found there. Again, you have the other e-modules and virtual development program courses for 2021. You can all find them online, the latest courses. Now we have other, which is going to be helpful as a young arbitration practitioner. Now, when I started out in arbitration practice, I always wanted to know what the guidelines are. Do you have like practice guidelines? And C.Arb does that. C.Arb has a committee called the Practice and Standard Guide Committee. And we develop and publish guidelines of good practice, a code of ethics, and rules and procedures in terms of the practice of private dispute resolution. Now, in terms of books, this is just a snapshot of it. One is the Resolver. That's our membership, court membership magazine. I'm proud to say that we've gone entirely online, being environmentally friendly. And we also have a peer-reviewed international arbitration journal. My very first academic journal on arbitration was published in a C.Arb journal. So that is something that's highly peer-reviewed, and I would say it's a very prestigious journal to have your article published in. So this is the student experience program. This is we launch next month. This is where it gives a virtual work experience to help you decide if you even want a career in ADR. Internships is one of them, and this is one of the other student experience program. So you can, like I said, we want you to experience life in C.Arb, in arbitration. And so we have provided this for free. It can be completed at your own pace. And again, you can find this information on our website. Now, again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us to know more. So right now, I will simply say, I hope you understand the benefits of being a member. And there is a YouTube video right here. You can watch the video on C.Arb as to how you can be part of it, why you want to be part of it. But if you have any question, like I said, we have an email address right at the bottom. Email us at memberservices@ciarb.org. If you have other questions, probably you can find it online, but you're welcome to send us an email there. So I do note that there were many questions, and so I would like to take this chance to answer a few questions. Now, two questions we have, and one of the questions that we had was what exam, sorry, just a moment. I think the first question was to ask what exams and training are required to become an associate member and as well as a fellow. I think the answer to answer the question is pretty much similar to what I said, which is that you first start out usually as an associate. So we are accredited depending on your experience. If you have 6 months of experience, then you do not need to go for the pathway. So it depends on your qualification. So all this can be found when you submit your qualifications, your documents, your accreditation online. You can click right through the submission. So that is where you. Now to progress up from an associate to a member to a fellow requires you to go through courses, which is why I suggested for me, I went through the pathways course. So each stage, as you progress, there'll be assessment courses. There will be even up to fellow, you'll be required to write an award, for example. There'll be peer interview before that. So it's all well structured. And I've said it's all up to date. It's only just been recently updated as well. In terms of articles getting published on the journal, we have, like I said, a submission deadline. Go to the website. There is a journal one, and it has all the details about all the writing and the standards, the editorial guidelines, and the submission timeline. So that is what I would suggest. Just take note that the journal obviously wants strong, well-written articles, so it's always welcome. You're always welcome. Being part of C.Arb, that helps you because you can speak to people who are fellow or chartered arbitrators who will give you some pointers as to how you can write a good piece for submission to our journal. In terms of slides, I'll leave it to C.Arb. Not sure if the slides will be projected. I do believe that at least if you have questions, like I said, email us at memberservices@ciarb.org. So if you have any questions, and if you can't find it online, you're welcome to raise those. But I suspect most of the questions would already be online. You can already find the answers there. In terms of discounted opportunities for students, my first question would be a member. If you're not a member, there's very little things we can do for you. So join as a student member, sign up, go to our website, click on join as a student. In fact, we have a tab that says join as a student. Submit all your information. You can find it online. Just to help you, I will now use to show you how to sign up as a student. So I'm at the C.Arb website, and you can see that this is where you can see this is the main website for globally. So you click on membership. And this is the membership webpage. You can see the details of benefits, the routes to membership. I think that was one of the questions. How do you move from an associate to member to a fellow? This is the answer. It explains to you the non-membership opportunities, but like I said, if you're a student member, it's free. Do sign up for it. Subscription rates for associate members and fellows and chartered arbitrators. And also we have like the young members group and women in ADR. Now for students, you click on student membership. And this is where you can just click. So as I said, it's completely free, open to anyone currently studying university or any other higher education institute around the world. So you click join as student. You'll be required to provide your personal details, experience and qualification, declarations, and confirmation. So in short, it's a very simple way. Submit the application form, and within 2 working days, we will send an acknowledgement to you as to your receipt of your application. And more likely than not, we will inform you of the outcome. In some cases, we may request for further particulars from you. So I hope that sort of answers how you can become a student member in the first place. Going through, I know there are lots of questions. I'm trying my best to answer them in this presentation. Just give me a moment. So there's a question of how to become a chartered arbitrator, a trainee lawyer, and that you'll be a qualified lawyer. Like I said, the starting point is to join as a member. Now, if you are a lawyer, no longer a student, you'll probably be assessed whether or not you qualify as associate or a member. So chartered arbitrator is you have to show experience, significant experience. So now you probably have to sit as an arbitrator in real life commercial cases. A number of you demonstrate that, for example, you have written many awards on that case. So I think that's a long-term goal, but in the immediate term to become a member or associate or member and moving on to a fellow, I think the first is to submit the application. Submit your application form, submit your accreditation, submit your degrees, certificates, and your experience. And that lets us assess where you rightly should sit in the whole pathways of between an associate all the way up to a fellow Chartered Institute arbitrators. So I think there's a question about how can LLM events, so how can master student be involved in C.Arb and events like this? Now, like I said, once you're a student, you get free membership. So as long as you're a student, you get free membership. And once you're on the membership, you are on the mailing list. You're on the mailing list for our global events. So there will be events that we collaborate, especially if you're a young members group, which is for age 40 and below. So in those cases, we tend to have events. So just to give it, like I was saying, we have supper clubs where a distinguished arbitrator will come and dine with 20 practitioners, usually all young members, and the opportunity to interact directly with the distinguished arbitrator or arbitrators. We also have other events where, for example, like competitions as well. So my take is that if you are a master's student or you're even a bachelor student, just sign up, be part of our student membership, see what membership can offer to you. And being a member for the last decade, more than a decade, I would frankly say that it is more than worth it. You've been part of it, and we've been very active in being as inclusive as possible globally. In terms of speaking about publishing or journal articles, I come back to the same point. If you're still a member, you'll be able to tap into our network. And we have a network of fellows and chartered, even members of chartered arbitrators. We're more than happy to give you some tips, mentoring, give you some guidance in it, especially those who have published journal articles. So insofar as it's concerned, it's the network in C.Arb, which is good, which lends support to your growth as a member. And as a student member, you don't have to pay anything. So it's just as quick as submit your form online, and then 2 days later, you get a result. Or if you need more particulars from you, we'll reach out to you. So that's the first starting step. Like I said, if you are a member, I just demonstrated you just need to go to our website, click on membership, click on the path. If you're a student, sign up. If you're not a student, you submit it, and we will assess whether it's associate or membership. It's all online, fast free. You don't need to, I mean, in the past, you need to submit like scanning documents and hard copies, but not anymore. I mean, it's all online, anywhere in the world, submit it to us, and that's it. So just go to ciarb.org, go for membership, and yes, all the tiers and subscription rates, FAQs, young members group, what we are doing in women in ADR, and so forth. Now, in terms of mentoring schemes, now there are many mentoring schemes, not just once apart. Like I said, it depends on the branch. For example, in certain branches I know of, they do some mentoring. They specifically, in fact, mentor, for example, the women in ADR. They do a mentoring program. They pair out mentors with mentees. But all this you only know of, and you only be invited to part of if you're actually a member. And as a student, this is the best time to find out whether C.Arb membership has the benefits that we are talking about. Now, there's no better way to find out than to be a member and see for yourself while you're a student where it goes. Now, I started out as I've said, a member, a fellow, and now I'm the co-chair of C.Arb YMG. I can tell you up front that we try our best to pair out mentorings, mentor pairs, even informally. So for example, in the networking event, we try to invite both the senior arbitration practitioners and the younger arbitration practitioners. There's a chance for this informal mentoring scheme to take place, even if there's no formal mentoring scheme. So be part of it. In fact, right now, we also have virtual networking events. Those are great events for you to reach out to someone across the globe who's able to give you some broad guidance about how you can develop a career, or if you have specific questions. This is a community of like-minded people like you. So this is one great reason to sign up as well. Okay. So there was a question about law graduate. Like I said, a student member, you can only be a student member if you are currently in university or in a higher education institute. If you're graduated, you can't be a student. But that should not stop you. It didn't stop me. And I would frankly say that this is a great way to find out if you are truly interested in ADR. This is one way. One, you get the training, you get the qualifications, you get the training in terms of theory and practice. Two, you get to meet like-minded people who share with you their experience, and you know not to make, for example, the mistakes they may have made earlier. These are great advice, free of charge, and it's because that's of the mentoring culture that we have for our senior Our panel today is an example of how much time our senior members devote to bring up the next generation of arbitration practitioners. So sign up, even if you're not a student, I strongly suggest that you try out at least our student, submit your membership form, and consider what we have. In terms of competitions, we have a lot of competitions, but a lot of the competitions are for our members. You have to be a member of our C.Arb. So I would suggest once you join, you immediately know what competitions that we have, and like some more competitions, including one competition I took part as part of C.Arb competition many years ago. Now that winning entry was eventually published in the journal, the C.Arb journal. So I would say that it's also a chance to really engage in depth with topics on arbitration that our C.Arb actually promote as a top leader. Now, if you're a student member, everyone, if you're already a student member, you should already have received, because remember, as you join as a member, you already hear of events, Young Members Group. So it's automatic. But in the event that you slip through, please drop us an email. If wherever you are in the world, that there will be a Young Members Group committee around you, in your region at least, and each chapter or branch. Now, reach out to them, say that you want, but more likely than not, you should already have received email invitation to take part in events in YMG. Now, this is a bit strange times. I mean, before COVID, we were holding events like once every month or even twice every month across kind of events. And for Young Members Group, when we try out, as I said, to bring the senior practitioners with the young practitioners together, we also try to create networking opportunities for young arbitration practitioners. We also do workshops and seminars. So we had a lot of events. Now, COVID might have slowed down a bit, but you should be receiving YMG email blast. If you have not, please drop us an email, or even reach out to your branch or the chapter is closest to you and tell them that you for some reason you're missing out. So once you finish your studies, and the question, do you need to sign up? Now, once you finish your studies, you no longer qualify as a student member. That's how it is. But my point is, and speaking from personal experience, there's absolutely every single reason that you should sign up as C.Arb member or an associate member, because it opens up pathways. It's a professional network. Your accreditation is recognized globally. Everyone recognizes it. So I would strongly suggest that you consider strongly being an associate member. Now, like I said, nothing tells us more than you being an associate member, you seeing for yourself, you attending our workshop, you attending our training to find out whether our membership is even on the broader scale, whether a career in ADR is something that you want to pursue in the long term. So please do come and join us. One more last question. I think I still have time for maybe about 5 to 8 questions. So if you have, just send them along. Otherwise, we have a panel discussion, in which case I'm going to pose bigger questions to the wider panel, but I'm happy to take on about 5 to 8 more questions. There's a question about how is there different routes for associate to become a member and for non-member to become directly a member. I think the answer to that question is quite direct. I think if you have the experience, you demonstrate in practice that you have the experience, the C.Arb will assess it and accord you with the accreditation. For example, if they think that you should be a member instead of an associate member based on their experience and qualifications, yes, we will do that. Now, if they do not, I do not think you should despair, because the reality is our courses from associate is to train you to become the best arbitrator, an arbitration practitioner. So as a fellow, this is cited as an example, you have to write an award. It's the 3 to 6 months course. And that award writing is something that I would simply say that even judges fail the course because it's that rigorous. It is rigorous for a reason, because our accreditation is recognized globally, and we uphold the highest standards in terms of arbitration practitioners, and as well in the other forms of ADR. So the important thing, I think, is simply to go through the course, put your accreditations, and let C.Arb objectively assess where you should be, and take this opportunity to learn. I think ultimately your aim as a fellow is also partly, or maybe predominantly, to learn to become a better ADR practitioner. So I think that was the last question I had. Are there any questions that I may have missed? I'm trying to follow a chat group as I'm answering the questions. Are there questions? Do you need me to demonstrate? Please feel free. We have. Okay, there's a question about experience working for. Okay, so like I said, work experience, in terms of work experience, we need documentation to prove that your work experience, because we want people to for us to assess where you are. So if you have work experience, you have experience working on ADR cases, put them in. You have dispute resolution experience, put them in. You have bar qualifications, put them in. You have educational experience, put them in. So that's what I suggest. Putting out as complete a picture as you can. And if we need more information from you or more clarity from you, we'll reach out to you within 2 days. It's all online. Just put the documents in. We assess it objectively. Now, in terms of internships, I would just simply say, yeah, we have a virtual work experience that you can complete at your own time. So that's March. So you come to our website, there are all the details have been there. If you're a student member, you would already have received the email blast, or you will receive the email blast sometime later this month. But that's March. If you're looking for internships, I'm sorry we don't have, but we do have, however, virtual work experience that we have. Now, we also have courses as well. If we're looking for internships with, say, institution and law firm, what we have, obviously, is as a network. Like, for example, for me, I mean, in our whole network, we have, in my YMG committee, my Young Members Group committee, we have people from different institutions, different practice, different law firms across international, local law firms. So it's a complete mix of networks. So being part of this organization called C.Arb gives you more than just membership. It gives you a network. And that's when you can obviously reach out and build your own informal links. And that might lead you to internship opportunities and also the longer term job opportunities as well. We'll cover that on the next panel session, the upcoming panel session in about 10 minutes time. So I do suggest that you stay on, and this could be one of the questions that we pose to our distinguished panel as well on terms of career opportunities. That was the last question. I still have time to take on at least 2 more questions. Okay, if there aren't any more questions, I mean, anyway, you can continue asking questions to the panel. I'll be moderating a panel of very distinguished fellow and of Chartered Institute arbitrators, as well as Chartered arbitrators shortly after, in about 10 minutes. So if you have any other questions, feel free to ask me. Like I said, come to the website, our details are there, FAQs, and if you have further questions, you want to drop us an email at memberservices@ciarb.org. But otherwise, it's a pleasure to have a very engaged audience. I hope that I've shared how you can sign up for C.Arb membership and why you should and what it offers. And we're going to have a panel after this to discuss how better to talk about. So just stay on. Okay, one more experience. With two more questions. Now, those two questions, I'll park it for later for panel discussion. I think we have questions on terms of what kind of experience are we looking for, and we talk about award writing. Now, I'll park those two questions. I'll come back to that. Just feel free to type in the chat group, and after that, we will definitely talk about it. So otherwise, I hope to speak to you all soon in about 10 minutes time. Thank you very much. All right, we're about to start the panel. While our panel is getting ready, I thought that maybe this is a good time to answer two of the questions that were meant just before the break. The first question was about what were we looking for when you joined, you applied to join as an associate member of C.Arb. So I'm going to share my screen right now, and that should give you some idea of it. Just give a moment. So if you see my screen, this is where, as I've said, this is the website you can join as a member. This is ciarb.org/membership and the routes to membership. For an associate, you need 6 months of experience in dispute avoidance or dispute management, and the qualifications is all set up here. So one of the C.Arb's introductory courses or equivalent qualification from recognized course provider. So all the details are here. It's all set up for you. So please feel free to go to that. And there's one last question, which is the question of award writing. This is an assessment course to become a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrator. You do need to go through award writing that requires an assessment. You go through a mock exam, but you're rigorously tested. Like you say, you have to know your stuff, and that's how high we hold the standards of our fellow and Chartered Arbitrators. We're just waiting for the panel to come. In the meantime, I'll answer one more question. There's a question of if you want to pursue a career in mediation, what's the best way to go about doing this? About whether or not in terms of complete LPC or BPTC or the undergrad law degree. Strictly speaking, a mediation, you don't need to be a qualified lawyer, but obviously if you are, it's going to help a lot. But in terms of those advice, like I said, that's a question that's best answered if you have a mentor, and that's what being a member of C.Arb helps. You have a network of mentors to reach out to. Now, I think we almost have a full panel, Mahesh, Vicky, and Francis. I think Francis is already online. Okay, I think there's some, he dropped off, so, but I think it's just give a moment before we introduce everyone.
Hi, Benson.
Hi, Mahesh. Hi, Vicky as well.
Hi. Mahesh.
I think Francis is
Hi,
dropped
Vicky.
off, but I think we should be having him back. He just... Are you off? Very different backgrounds. I have a painting there. I'm not sure what it is.
Well, interesting backgrounds, literally and figuratively, in terms of our experience in arbitration as well.
Oh yeah,
So,
quite diverse kind of spread of backgrounds as well. I'm just curious to see how Francis' background is as well. So let's see how you.
It will probably be the Raja and Tan virtual background.
Oh,
it reminds me. I should be using a virtual background, but can't be bothered.
I like actual backgrounds. They're usually more interesting. The real life ones. Okay. We had a lot of questions just to share with you. I mean, we have a lot of questions. I've asked questions. We are really lucky to have a really engaged audience. So we'll be tied to you because you have a lot of questions to ask. I'll be forwarding them to you. As time goes on, I think Francis should be joining. Mahesh, I think you lost a bet. It's not a virtual background. He also has a painting. He has a painting behind him as well.
The host has stopped at the other side.
Hi, Francis.
Hi, guys. Obviously, we have some technical teething problems. Yeah. Hi.
No worries at all. We're right on time. So now that our panel is on board, I would like to shortly introduce them into a short paragraph. Francis is the regional head of Raja and Tan LLP's dispute resolution group. He was appointed senior counsel in January 2009. He's actively involved in cross-border commercial disputes in the area of corporate banking, property, financial, and investment-related claims. He has appeared as counsel and acted as arbitrator, both party-appointed and presiding a large number of arbitration. He's the immediate past president of the Inter-Pacific Bar Association and also the immediate past president of C.Arb. He's a chartered arbitrator and also a past chairman of the Singapore branch of C.Arb. Together with Francis today, we also have Mahesh. Now, Mahesh is the director at Drew & Napier LLC. He has an active litigation arbitration practice with particular focus on complex, high-value, and cross-border disputes across a range of industries: construction, infrastructure, telecoms, IT, shipping, energy, and commodities. He's also the deputy head of Drew and Napier's construction and engineering practice and advises on front-end construction matters. He's a fellow of C.Arb and is on the C.Arb Singapore branch, board of directors, and co-chair of C.Arb Singapore YMG. And finally, but not least, we have Vicky. Vicky acts as counsel and arbitrator across a broad range of complex commercial disputes, including oil and gas, cost and revenue farm-in, gas supply, shareholder, distributorship, and major construction agreements. She has a detailed knowledge of trust laws and has acted as counsel in commercial and family trust disputes and has appeared in banking and finance disputes in the Supreme and Federal Courts. She is the Vice President of C.Arb Australia, a National Councillor, and the Chair of the Education Community of C.Arb Australia, and also a Fellow of C.Arb. So thank you, Francis, Mahesh, and Vicky, for joining us. So maybe we'll just start with the easy question, which is, what is your personal experience and your views on C.Arb membership? Francis, would you like to go first?
Well, Benson, thanks. Obviously, my personal experience is that the CIArb, the entire ecosystem in the CIArb is the ADR community, right? And if you want to build a career in ADR, then you need to get plugged into the community, right? Because it is a community that recognizes you for what you are. It is a community that, appoints you as an arbitrator. It's a community that recommends you as counsel in cases. It is a community that recognizes your credentials and expertise. So really, your career in arbitration or mediation or any other form of ADR is as good as the quality of your relationships within this community. So, everything from training to building your profile to getting appointed as counsel or as arbitrator comes from the community. So being plugged into the CIArb community is central to everything we do.
Mahesh, what are your thoughts? What's your personal experience?
I wholeheartedly agree with Francis. I think that when it comes to, I think there are many forums out there, many arbitration forums out there that you could be part of. But people who join the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, they're looking for something more in the vein of being formally trained as to how to take on appointments as an arbitrator. And we have lots of these sessions these days. How do you get your first appointment? How do you start out as a young arbitration lawyer? How do you become an arbitrator in your early 30s, right? And lots of these questions can really be answered by saying that you should join the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, because there are certain programs that we run that familiarize young practitioners with different aspects of arbitration. So typically, young practitioners would be third or fourth chair on a matter in a big firm or medium-sized firm, or even in a solo practice, they would be second chair. But being part of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators offers you the perspective to look at it from the point of view of an arbitrator. And so if you do the fellowship course, you will learn how to write an award. So I think that's quite key, because your first few appointments as a young practitioner is likely to come from an institution. And I think you make a better case for yourself if you are a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. That's probably the most well-known Chartered Institute of Arbitrators around the world at present. So I think you definitely support the case for the institutions to appoint you if you show some degree of skill recognition, so to speak, by that fellowship. And then the other point that Francis touched on is also quite important, which is that I think the practitioners who join the Chartered Institute, they tend to be of a certain kind. They are heavily engaged in international arbitration. So for young practitioners, it's good for them to actually network with these practitioners and get their name out there in the market.
Now, Vicky, I'm going to ask you also about share your personal experience, but I'm going to include a question, because there's a question whether being an associate member or a member of C.Arb helped in pupillage applications for the bar. So just take it on.
Associate membership in connection with what, sorry?
pupillage applications to be a barrister? Okay,
Well,
so
I suppose
what's an experience
I
in that?
can only speak from my own experience as an Australian barrister, and there is actually an exam in Victoria that you have to sit and complete and pass. It's a bit like the New York bar exams, a small one, but that's just to get entry into the bar. So we've got, it's really just based on you sitting an exam and being one of those that are selected. So it's a competitive system here in terms of getting in. I'm not sure what the system would be, for instance, in England. But I will speak to associate membership because I do think that's important, but perhaps in different ways. So I suppose to just sum up, I mean, I think, you know, both speakers have made some excellent points, and it's really distilled what I think are the two basic benefits of being a member of CIArb, and I'm speaking from my own experience here. One is, there's two aspects. One's accreditation, and the other is the network, you know, which both panellists have talked about. But if I can just sort of expand a little bit on that, I mean, I'm a fellow, Benson's a fellow, you know, Mahesh is a fellow, Francis is sort of at the pinnacle being a chartered arbitrator. And so accreditation and membership go hand in hand, that those in the arbitration community know what those levels of accreditation and membership mean. It's a globally recognised qualification which has a consistent standard throughout the world. And that, I think that's important in this field. We're dealing with international disputes, we're dealing with parties, arbitrators, lawyers from all across the world, and those in the international arbitration community understand the high standards of CIArb accreditation. And I had someone ask me recently, within the last few days actually, because I'm chair of the education committee and conducting an accelerated route to membership, and the question was, well, you know, what's the benefit to me in doing this course? So it's not associate grade, it's, you know, one-up membership. And this person was a very senior lawyer and looking to develop their practice in arbitration. And my response was that a CIArb qualification is a piece of the jigsaw. It's not the entire puzzle. So in other words, having a CIArb qualification is not a guarantee of work, but I think it's important. So that deals with sort of accreditation. And the other one, I mean, just translating that across to your student viewers, you know, an example in terms of associate grade of membership, I think it certainly demonstrates an interest in arbitration. So not just saying that, you know, to a prospective employer that you're interested in arbitration, but demonstrating that you have an interest in arbitration because you've taken the time to, you know, become an associate membership, whether it's doing the course or showing your experience. And I think the other important element is networking. And, you know, that's one of the benefits. You know, you don't have to construct your own network. There is one already there and you just have to tap into it, basically. You know, that's the brilliance of it, that the network is already there. And so you really get to then to take up networking opportunities by going to conferences that CIArb organise. Here in Australia, I mean, we usually organise business lunches and other social events, which hopefully we'll be able to do once things ease up on the COVID front.
Yeah, and also there's also virtual networking opportunities right now that's available. So maybe just to throw it out to the whole panel as well. I mean, where do we start? I mean, that's probably one of the questions that a lot of our student participants right now would like to know. Where can they start? And does any of you have any thoughts on where to start, how to start, and just open the question?
Well, I was going to say, I mean, even as a student, you should be thinking about your arbitration career as a student, even, you know, if that's what you're thinking about. So I would suggest entering Moot competitions. I mean, obviously the biggest one is the Viz Moot, but there are others. And in Australia, we've also got the Alfred Deakin Law School International Law Moot, which went virtual this year. And so we had, which CIArb Australia supports, and we had, you know, teams from all over the world participate in that. So that's an alternative one. It's not quite as big as Viz Moot. I think writing and publishing is a really good idea. You can, you know, write blogs and things like that, and you can build up your CV in that way. And so, you know, by doing these are all ways really of demonstrating your interest in arbitration and building up that CV.
Francis, any thoughts on that?
Benson, I think Vicky and Mahesh spoke about some of the key things, and basically the three things that you need to keep a keen finger on the pulse of, right? You need to demonstrate to the world that you've been sufficiently trained. You then need to demonstrate to the world that you're sufficiently experienced. And then you need to demonstrate to the world that you have sufficient expertise and credibility to be the arbitrator or counsel that they need. And so training, do the modules. I think Vicky spoke about them. Do your, the introduction and the ongoing modules. Be trained. And then along with the training, as Mahesh emphasized, there comes the accreditation. Vicky also spoke about it, right? So it's just not training. The world, you can put the post-nominals in your card beyond your name at the various stages. And then the world recognizes all across the world. We have 70,000 members in 152 countries. In all these countries, people recognize the CIArb brand. So they will recognize you as having been trained. And then the experience, right? You need to gain the experience. You either need to work as an intern or work under as an associate with an arbitration practitioner, or get accredited as a tribunal secretary, get trained. CIArb has a course, and reach out to senior practitioners and become a tribunal secretary. Then you get the experience, and then hopefully you will also get experience as counsel. You can also, like practically everyone here, get onto the teaching faculty and demonstrate to the world at large that you in fact know your stuff well enough to teach it, right? And then finally, build your credibility, your expertise, your profile, as both Mahesh and Vicky have, and I'm sure Benson, you touched on it too in your earlier talk. Write articles, talk at seminars, demonstrate your ability. And one of the ways of doing it is to become active in your local chapter or branch. And take on leadership roles. I mean, the fact that Mahesh is a board member of the Singapore branch speaks volumes when he puts it in his CV, right? Because then people will realize that the arbitration community in Singapore regards Mahesh as a lawyer. I mean, as a lawyer with arbitration expertise, for him to be appointed to the board with the support of the membership. Vicky too holds leadership positions in Australia. And so the CIArb network community allows you to demonstrate all of that. It's a one-stop shop. Benson, over to you.
It's true. And in fact, interestingly enough, before COVID hit, Francis was invited as part of YMG as one of the supper club members, but it didn't happen. But so on the YMG point, we had questions about YMG, and I think Mahesh, you're the co-chair, so share a lot more about what the YMG does. What do you think that being part of, even just a student member and therefore being part of the YMG, what does it do for you? What's the benefits? Share us.
So the YMG provides a forum for younger practitioners to network amongst themselves and broaden their knowledge about arbitration. So we hold seminars that are specifically catered towards younger practitioners. One of the seminars we did in the last 2 years was entitled "Surviving the Long Night: Getting Your First Appointment as an Arbitrator," and we had some very senior members of the bar like Judith Gill QC, like Kevin Nash from the institution, and I believe Alistair Henderson as well, coming and sharing how each of them obtained their first appointment as an arbitrator. And we also got an insight from them as to whether they think that the market has changed and how has it changed, and what should students do or early career practitioners do in order to put their best foot forward and take on an arbitration appointment. So that is an example of the type of activities that we do. And then I think we also organize events where we can network with very senior members of the bar, senior counsel like Francis, like other stars of the local bar and the international arbitration bar as well. And the other thing that we also do, which is quite unique, is that we offer a platform for younger practitioners to network with young in-house counsel. So we also are plugged into the Corporate Counsel Association, the tool that you have here. And that's quite important because I think early on in my career, a senior lawyer had actually given me a very valuable piece of advice, which is like, that he said you should try to network amongst your peers. Right? If you try to network with a 60, 70-year-old man who already is quite established, you're going to find that experience quite awkward. And that was very sound advice. So there are other young in-house lawyers out there who probably would feel out of place speaking to elderly gentlemen or women who are at the bar. And I think that's where we come in as part of the YMG, and we provide a platform for that kind of networking. So if you like, I think the YMG keeps the interest amongst young practitioners alive for arbitration, and it promotes knowledge as well.
So just to pick up on what Mahesh and Francis said about like reputation building from very early on, Vicky, what one piece of advice would you give in terms of networking for a young practitioner who's just starting out in the ADR journey?
I think, I suppose, advice that I might give to my younger self, which I still give to myself, is to be bold and brave. I think it's important to be bold and brave, and sometimes you have to even be a little bit shameless in putting yourself forward. Be prepared to take a knockback if it happens. If you reach out and it doesn't work, well, what have you lost? You've lost nothing and you're no worse off. I sort of, think of a metaphor. It comes from The Merchant of Venice, one of Shakespeare's plays, where you send the ships out and you see what ships come back. You send things out and you see what comes back, what bears fruit. And the point is you keep trying and you don't give up. And the other point that I would make, especially to young women, is to very much be mindful of the imposter syndrome. So if someone gives you an opportunity, they think you deserve it, and take it with both hands and grab it. So don't sort of give into that imposter syndrome.
Well, that's good advice. And Francis and Mahesh, any pieces of advice would you give to your younger self? What would you say to your younger self?
You first.
I would echo what Vicky has said. I think my view is that nobody owes you a career. So if you want to make it, I think you have to go out there and get it for yourself. You have to look out for yourself. You have to find opportunities, find moot competitions to take part in, build up your profile, show whoever it is who's looking at your professional CV that you are serious about being a dispute resolution practitioner. And moot competitions, writing articles, these are just some ways of you showing that you're actually very serious about this area. And never stop learning. Keep an open mind, never stop learning. And as Vicky said, I think it's important to be a little bit shameless. And remember, if you are feeling shy, so is everyone else. So I think there's nothing wrong with putting yourself out there and trying to plug yourself into the arbitration network. That's my advice.
Benson, I think, I'll echo what Vicky and Mahesh have said to a large extent. I would say there are three things. The first thing is, as human beings, it's natural for our heads by default to be filled by anxiety. There's the profession is super saturated and there's not going to be space for me. There are already too many arbitrators. And to have a lot of self-doubt. And what Vicky said, is exactly right. She called it the imposter syndrome. So I'll say the very first thing is believe in yourself, right? You are a child of God. Believe in yourself and reach out for your dreams. Don't, as Mahesh says, don't fear. Go out there. And the second thing would be, you may not know how to make it to the highest levels. But take one bite of the apple at a time. There's no way you can eat an apple any other way. So you will have an idea, right? As Mahesh says, one thing will come to your mind. I need to go and do the intro course in CIArb. Get that done. And then the next stage will appear. Suddenly there'll be an opportunity. You will see a case in the Supreme Court that really made a change in arbitration. Write a half-page case note. Don't write a 14-page treatise because busy practitioners have no time, right? In fact, it's off-putting to have to read a 14-page article to find out what happened in a single case. So write a half-page, three-quarter-page, terse, helpful summary, and the practitioners would be happy that they don't have to read this 120-page case. They've got your summary and they understand what's going on, and then they will remember you. This person has got good intellect. And finally, I would say, put people first. Mahesh put it as go out and get to know your peers. Put people first, right? We tend to focus on tasks, like, oh, we've got to get out an opinion or we've got to get out the submission. But don't ever forget that people come first, even your opponents. I keep saying that. One day Your peers would be judges, would be arbitrators, would be in-house counsel who will be referring work to you. Everything happens because of other people, right? And if there are two arbitrators or two counsel equally good, and one of them is likable and the other guy is not, guess who is going to get appointed? No prizes for guessing. So I would say 3 rules to live by.
Well, that's really sound advice from the entire panel. Now, I know our audience today is a very engaged one. So I'm going to take a minute just to invite questions from the audience. If you have questions, please post them. So in the meantime, I do, however, have a question. And my question is, there's so much information out there. So what's one career myth that you would debunk right away? So Mahesh, why don't you go first? What's one career myth that you want to debunk right away?
Career myth, that's a good one. I think it's this misnomer that some people are gifted in the way that they are basically lucky. So I think when you are a younger practitioner, it's very easy to put everything up to chance, right? To actually say that, look, so and so is a very successful practitioner. Oh, it's because this person got lucky. I think in hindsight, it's very easy to write off all the hard work that someone has actually done. But I think if you examine the careers of very successful lawyers and arbitrators, you would find that every step of the way they've had to work hard, and in various sort of ways. Each of them have their own journey. Each of them have their own story, but they definitely put in blood, sweat, and tears in charting their own course and getting to where they are. So I would say success doesn't come easy. It may appear to be easy, but it's not. So yeah, it's a career myth that I would think we would debunk.
Vicky, one career myth that you would debunk?
I had very similar thoughts in terms of, but I put it in terms of overnight success. You know, there really is no such thing, I think, as overnight success. And you know, it's, you know, a matter of putting in all the hard work. I remember while I was on a plane trip to Singapore, you know, going to a conference and networking and going to meet people. And while on that plane trip, I was watching a film. It was a documentary about the last man on the moon. And his name escapes me, but it was a fantastic phrase which I have really kept and remembered. And he said something like, don't count yourself out. You never know how good you are until you really try, like really try. Dream the impossible and go out and make it happen. Like that, you've got to actually do something to make it happen. And it's a bit like a chemistry experiment where, you know, you keep adding a substance to a solution, and you wait and wait and wait, and suddenly you get the precipitate. You know, you get that crystallization. It's that moment. And it's a bit like people who think, you know, that, you know, the sudden career success, whereas, you know, it's all the work that goes into, you know, putting, you know, that suddenly makes the precipitation or the event that happens. It seems to be the miracle. And just one more anecdote that springs to mind while I'm talking to you is I remember being at ICA in Sydney in 2018. So again, you know, going out, talking to people, meeting people. And I remember being at a luncheon where Bridget Stern, who's a very experienced arbitrator, and she was talking about her own life experience and saying how, you know, she waited 10 years until she got her first arbitral appointment. And it came from suddenly being, you know, a mere professor to having a UN appointment, which then sort of launched her career. And she said it's described as sort of Cinderella-like, but I'm sure that there was a lot of sort of time and effort that went into getting that.
Make it happen sounds like a slogan for a sports brand for sure. That's definitely what. Francis, one career myth that you debunk?
Well, you know, I touched on it. You know, young people, when they gather around, they tend to have conversations about the fact that the profession is too crowded. There's no room at the top. There are all these big names. That's not true. There's always room for the top, at the top, and there's always room for you. And as Vicky says and Mahesh says, if you put in the hard work, believe in yourself, and kept moving up the ladder, you will get there. Nothing can stop you.
That's true. We have questions from the audience. I think we have briefly touched on in terms of the network. I think being part of C.Arb gives you a network of people. Now, there's this question about mentors and networking, and where members or students who are interested to be members are completely new to the field. They want to know what you think about mentorship in C.Arb. You know, what are the opportunities out there? Does it happen informally or formally? So anyone can pick up this question.
I think there is a C.Arb mentorship program that pairs up a student or a young practitioner with a senior practitioner. I believe you can actually sign up for that.
Yeah, and I also was adding to that in the earlier presentation, which was saying that there are, because as you part of this networking, we do, like I said, pair some there's this informal mentorship between the senior members. The fact that in this panel of very esteemed panelists demonstrates that our senior members of C.Arb, they do actually take an active role in bring the next generation. So it's all about being part of this network, and that's something that we want to talk about. And speaking of that, there's another question as to whether doing an LLM in ADR or work experience would help more with starting a career. Again, anyone can pick this up. Vicky, maybe because of the education aspect?
Oh, yes, I mean, I was just thinking of that you know, experience, outside experience might, you know, depending on the nature of it, might automatically qualify you to associate membership, you know, that, and then, you know, once you're a member, then you can start, you know, becoming part of CIArb events, and you get notice of it. I mean, I mean, I sort of miss the face-to-face human interactions that we had, you know, in previous years. But one of the great things about COVID is, you know, I went and listened to a CIArb seminar last night, my time, on Halliburton and Chubb, you know, the UK Supreme Court decision on impartiality and independence of arbitrators, where about, you know, 800 people across the world attended, and there was all sorts of very active chats that were going on the side to the panel discussion. So, yeah.
No, there are, and like I said, I do completely agree with you. I think it cuts both ways, right? I mean, work experience certainly does matter, but you know, there are many routes to reach the top, and it's about making it happen for yourself. It's very customized kind of route. I mean, I would talk. There's also another question of whether grades matter. I mean, academic grades, do they matter? Well, Francis, do you want to pick this up? What if the final exams don't go well? Does it exclude you from a career in arbitration?
Well, you know, I think you know, people who are hiring are looking for young people. You know, grades are of course important, right? I mean, you want to know that someone, that's the only crude tool that we have to see if you have the necessary intellect, right? And so someone who has good grades means the person is willing to work hard and has the intellect to get the good grades, right? But I think the senior people are also cognizant of the fact that sometimes due to factors, right, beyond your control, you have family issues, if you've had a bout of illness, that may have affected your grades. So I have hired people when they have written to me to explain why their grades weren't so good. And, you know, they had the backing of their tutors, for instance. But of course, if you get bad grades for no good reason, then that's a tough sell when there are many other students with the good grades, right? But just because you don't get the good grades because you had a good reason, don't give up, because you can explain. I remember I had bad grades in A-levels because I had a lumbar fracture, and I spent 1 month, just about a week before the exams, in the ICU. So, you know, people will give you a chance if you can explain away, and you know, somebody, a tutor, for instance, will vouch for you. But I think what everyone is looking for, you know, if Mahesh is hiring or Vicky is hiring, or if you're hiring, Benson, if I'm hiring, what we are looking for is someone to demonstrate to us that they are passionate, right, about arbitration, about ADR, that they have a keen interest. So when you see that the person, even as a pupil, not having been called to the bar, has paid good money to take on an associate membership, you know, accreditation by doing the intro course, it tells you that the person is passionate about arbitration. And I think that's what you want to signal to your potential employer, right? That you are serious about this. You're passionate about it, right? Thank you.
And Vicky and Mahesh, would you agree with that? I mean, if you were hiring a pupil or an associate, are this the same thing you're looking for? Passion, grades? What are you looking for?
I'm not so much in the hiring environment, but I think that, obviously what a CV says is important, and often that can be the first filter. So, if your grades aren't fantastic, you might want to even think about doing, I don't know, if it was some particular reason and, you think that, maybe, I don't know, you might have matured a bit more and the grades don't really reflect where you are. I mean, you could always think about doing further study with a master's and doing really well, and then that'll sort of transform where you are, perhaps. Maybe law, I find, I mean, I've heard this from people that studies in law, it's different to study like medicine or whatever, where you rote learn things. Law is very, it's high level thinking, and sometimes it doesn't gel for people until later in their law degree. And that can sometimes hold them back. They might have got sort of lesser grades, but they're getting better. And sometimes you might just need that little bit more time. And I don't know, maybe an LLM might do that for you. It could sort of propel you into another academic league. That's a possibility. But I think it picks up on something that Francis said earlier about, being friendly with, people that you know. And if you're going to an interview, I think having a sort of a sunnier disposition just sort of conveys to people that, you're workable, you can work with people, how they will get along with others, what they'll project in terms of whether they're working with you or as, part of, a firm or whatever. It's all about being personable and that you can get along with people. I think that's really important too. And I think, once you get through the first screening, which might be CVs or whatever, that's really what people are focused upon is, am I going to be able to, do I see this person fitting in as part of a team? Can they work together? Do they have a reasonable personality from what I can detect at this interview? How do I think I'll be able to work with them? I think...
Sorry, Vicky, I
was going to say one more thing. If you're going to an interview, make sure you research the person's career who is interviewing you. I think because it just shows that, again, demonstrates an interest that you care. And, I think it's just a nice gesture.
I think it's so important. I mean, I do it for arbitrators. I absolutely do it for if I'm interviewing for a job. So Mahesh, do you have anything to add to what Francis and Vicky were saying about jobs?
I think Francis's point is a very good one, which is often overlooked. If you have something on your CV that I think calls up for an explanation, you should cover it in your cover letter. So in your cover letter, you should set out if you think that you didn't perform as well as you did. And the one point that I would add to what my fellow speakers have actually raised is that just remember that everybody has their own pathway. So for some people, if you may be aiming for one of the top firms in the world or in Singapore or in Australia or in the region, and even if you don't get there right away, there's nothing wrong with that, right? So there are a number of people who actually go and take up a job at another law firm, excel over there, and then they make a parallel switch, right? They actually make an in-career switch, and by which time I think your grades would matter less. Vicky also raised a good point, which is doing masters. That could also be an alternative. And I conduct interviews as part of the recruitment drive for my firm, and there are many candidates who actually don't have as good grades. They don't have first-class honors, but they impress a lot during the interview because of how energetic they are. And sometimes when we go for the interview, we are very surprised that this student doesn't have a high second upper or first class, but they know so much about the firm that it's almost infectious, right? Their excitement is almost infectious, and that puts that candidate in a better standing than if you were to graduate the top of your class, but when you come for the job interview, you weren't even bothered enough to research who's interviewing you or what the firm is about.
To being interested, like it's being sold on the culture of the firm. Now, before I touch on culture, I want to answer one quick question, and that is on the membership rates. The membership rates, it differs around the world, depending on which jurisdiction you're from. So I just wanted to point that out. It's on the website, but just a quick answer to that question about how in different jurisdictions, the membership rates are different to reflect the different jurisdictions. And as I've said, we try to be very inclusive. That's part of our culture. Now, on culture, just going back to the point on culture, Francis, you're the immediate past president of C.Arb. Millennials and Gen Z are all about culture, buying into the culture, buying into organization ideas. What do you see as, from the top, what do you see as the cultures or values of C.Arb as an organization?
I think, Benson, that's a good point. I think the very first point, which we all need to be mindful of is the fact that, you're not going to get anywhere without integrity. So I think as an organization, we value, we instill, and we emphasize integrity at every step of the way. And I think, I would say to every young practitioner out there, develop integrity as your core strength, right? So when an arbitrator sees you appear, maybe the first time they're not sure who you are, but in the way that you are, demonstrate that you are someone who acts with integrity, right? You're not going to do a number just to win a point or to succeed in an application or a hearing. I think integrity is key, but I think even before you get to integrity, which is a very fundamental aspect, I think, ethics, which, everyone on this panel would have. I'm sure Vicky and Mahesh, and I know Mahesh haven't had the chance to get to know Vicky very well, but nobody gets anywhere in this field if you do not demonstrate a willingness, to roll up your sleeves, put your shoulder to the wheel and work hard, right? Do what is necessary to prepare for a case, for a hearing, and be really put in the hours, right? Be dedicated to your craft, right? And give the case sufficient, it's just not working hard, it's working smart as well, right? Making sure that you've covered all the issues that arise, you have worked at it long enough to have a clear structure, you know what you're talking about, you've researched all relevant laws, including analogous laws. So when you get into the hearing room or you get to, a seminar room or you get anywhere, you show everyone that you're just not doing it off the cuff, taking it, on the wing, on the fly. You demonstrate that you've done your work, you know what you're talking about, and you're ready for it. So hard work, preparation, a lot of thought, and I think integrity, are key skills, which we hope CIArb members and practitioners and the leadership will demonstrate in everything that they do. I think these are the basic ones, but I'm sure the others will elaborate.
Vicky, Mahesh, as fellows, what do you consider to be the key values and the culture of C.Arb?
The very two that Francis named sprang to mind. So it's very interesting that we both had the two, both the same thoughts. And, I was thinking in terms of ethics, and what sprang to mind for me was, I think, at some forum, I can't recollect, Chief Justice Menon, it might have been an Australian function actually, but Chief Justice Menon from the Singapore court said that, CIArb is one of the few global associations which has a code of ethics that the membership subscribes to. So I think that is a really important distinguishing feature that Francis has already mentioned. And again, this concept of excellence and, competency and high standards. And, you see that in terms of, high quality seminars that are delivered, as well as of course, the courses and that kind of thing. But those are the very 2 points that sprang to mind to me. So I think that probably is one of the core the 2 core values of CIArb, I think, if we've independently reached or come to the same conclusion.
That's excellent. Mahesh?
I think Francis nailed it. There's nothing else for me to add.
Okay, well, that's true. So then maybe there are 2 questions. We can't exactly give you specific career advice here. So, it's all customized, so I can't. But what we can, however, talk about is about pathways. I think we talk about pathways being established, accreditation through the courses that C.Arb does, as well as through practical experience. So we're going to talk about 2 things. One, and I would like to ask the panelists for their opinions. Open question. One is, if you have 20 decades of experience in, say, the financial services sector, and you decide to take on a master's and try to move towards being an arbitrator, do you have any broad career advice as to how to do it? This is just open question to anyone.
I think I will take this one. I was working with a global MNC for some time on a couple of arbitrations, And their general counsel had been out of practice for many years, and he had actually moved into a management role. Upon his retirement, he wanted to sit as an arbitrator. And so he actually took the relevant courses, and he started from Introduction to International Arbitration, and then he became a fellow eventually. And now in the US, I believe he's a JAMS arbitrator and a AAA arbitrator. So I think he, after retirement or after many decades of experience in a different industry, he then decides to actually sit as an arbitrator. He got himself accredited and showed that he had a core competence, and he actually plays to his strengths by serving as an arbitrator now. I think if you have lots of experience in the financial services industry, I think you would be attractive for disputes in that specific industry, particularly where you have sole arbitrator appointments. So I think you can play to your strengths and develop your arbitration skill set, and then feel yourself as an arbitrator.
Yes, I think in certain sectors where expertise in that particular industry, that's always like, for example, construction. Architects have made second careers as arbitrator as well. So it is indeed open. That's the beauty of being in C.Arb, is that it opens more doors for you in the long term. Now, that also, Vicky, this next question is probably for you. The question is, being part of the education community, if you have already done an introduction to international arbitration and you want to cross over to do the construction adjudication program, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I mean, we don't offer we sort of don't offer that level of specialty in Australia. So that's probably, I would imagine, a London offering, and probably not even in any of the other branches, I suspect, because it's so specialised. So, and they might even be offering that online, because a lot of the courses have now been, not online, sorry, virtual. There's a difference between online courses and a virtual course. So with a virtual course, you still have interaction. It's just done in this kind of format. So that's probably the best bet. And if you are intending not to sort of practice broadly as a commercial arbitrator, but really looking to specialise, then that could be something that could mark you out. And that might be useful within that sort of field or industry.
Yeah, I think broadly speaking, I think that adjudication is very unique to construction disputes, and I think Mahesh probably can speak a lot more about construction. But what essentially is, I think C.Arb offers different pathways you can consider, and sometimes, and this is one point that I was talking about in my membership presentation, is that it gives you a chance to experience how life in ADR is, and whether or not you want to pursue it as a long-term career. And so that is pretty much an opportunity for you to ask more questions, network with people, and be part of panels like this, where you can ask questions as well. I'll move on to my next question, and that is, being the arbitration world has just many roles and many opportunities. Sometimes if you don't know where they are or what they are, you wouldn't know how to pursue them. So just a broad question, open question to all the panelists. How do you go out to find out what there is in the arbitration world, or in the mediation world, in the ADR world? How does being part of C.Arb help you in that regard?
I mean, Benson, I think at the end of the day, yes, sometimes a lot of marketing is targeted, right? So if you're in a law firm, we are constantly looking out for disputes that break out. So we keep in touch with the news, and then you will hear a news that, break out that there's a big dispute between this main contractor and subcontractor. And then, you will try and reach one of the parties to see if they require legal help. Basically, you may already know them, right? So a lot of it is proactive in that sense. But my personal experience, and maybe Mahesh and Vicky could share theirs as well, is that a lot of the times when I'm engaged as counsel or appointed as arbitrator by a party, I have no clue. I had no clue that that dispute was simmering or going on or had erupted until the parties approached me, right? Because a lot happens beyond the radar of, public news, right? And so really, at the end of the day, you are going to be appointed an arbitrator or appointed as counsel largely because of word of mouth recommendation, right? Somebody recommends you to a client who needs help, and you don't really know them, right? And after they know you, perhaps they'll come back to you when they have a problem in the future. But I would say today, and I'm sure Mahesh might agree and Vicky might agree, I would say up to 80%, 85% of the work that I do, both as arbitrator and as counsel, is based on word of mouth. It's because somebody knows me, or they're confident that I can handle it, and they approach me to be an arbitrator, or their counsel has recommended, or for counsel work, I'm approached, right, by word of mouth. So that's why building your profile in the community, so that the community knows who you are, right, and you can demonstrate to the community who you are. That's so important.
And anything else to add from Vicky and Mahesh?
I think just to add on to what Francis was saying, I think when you're plugged into the community and you are well known as an arbitration practitioner who has integrity and who's good, you will also find that your peers, when they are conflicted, they will also refer you work, right? So that's another key source of work, just to add on to what Francis has said. But I wholeheartedly agree with Francis. A lot of the work that we practitioners get, I don't even know, where, I didn't even expect it to actually come, but it's through word of mouth more than anything else.
Yeah, I think they're all valid, and I was sort of like thinking laterally about what other, apart from the usual law firm route, because I'm looking at this through the prism of one of the students, listening to this and thinking about other potential avenues, outside of the usual firm one. And I thought something that sprang to mind, which is always worth thinking about. Francis has mentioned tribunal secretaries and the course that CIArb runs, which can be useful. And I was also thinking of, the secretariats in the arbitral institutions often hire younger people within the secretariat. Often they might have some background, but not necessarily. They could just have, a strong academic background in arbitration with demonstrated interest in arbitration. So that could always be a sort of a lateral way in. I'm just sort of broadening the scope of the question, if you like, but I was thinking in terms of your listeners and what they might be interested. There's always, just picking up on something that Mahesh said earlier about, you don't have to get it right. You don't have to get to your landing point immediately, that it might be a more circuitous route, whether it's via a smaller law firm before you get to the bigger one, or even, there is some very notable academics who become arbitrators. So it can be a more interesting or diverse pathway, depending on what role you might ultimately want. It's often the journey and not the destination. It's part of enjoying the journey as well, and doing what you enjoy. Look, if you like doing work for a legal publisher on arbitration, you're still in the arbitration field, you're just in a different sector of the legal services sector, if you like. You're in publishing and information gathering.
Yeah, and so there are many roles and opportunities, and like we mentioned before, there are many roads that lead to Rome. Now we have time for one or two more questions from the audience. I'm just going to put it out there before I ask my one last question. My one last question is, I'm a football fan, and I read today, about 2 days ago, about Luis Suarez, who said that one of his greatest quotes was, "Don't give up. Don't look at the kid that misses 5, 7 to 8 times. Look at the kid that keeps trying." And that is what his mantra is. So I'm going to go around. Vicky, you first. What is one mantra that you stick by as a practitioner?
Sorry, who's one mentor?
What is one mantra that you will live by? And for Luis Suarez is never give up. So what will yours be?
Well, mine was be bold and brave. So that's my motto, and I continue to say it to myself, to be bold and brave, and continue to put yourself out there, and don't count yourself out, and don't convince yourself that you won't get it. Just give it a go.
Mahesh, what's the one mantra you can go with?
I think you should just aim to do the best every day of your life. And take things one step at a time.
Francis?
Right. Mine is similar to what Mahesh said, and this was something, a mentor told me when I was a young lawyer. And he says the key to being successful is going the extra mile every time, right? So a colleague entrusts you with something, a client entrusts you with something, a senior lawyer that you're working with tells you to do something. Everything you do, go the extra mile, right? Go beyond 100%, right? In terms of, if they expect 100%, give them 120%, right? And then you will find that, you're assisting the senior lawyer, and the person on the case remembers you, and the next piece of work, they actually come to you, going the extra mile. You can never go wrong with that.
Thank you all, but I just one last question from the audience, and that was the audience about tribunal secretaries. I think Vicky mentioned it. I think Francis also mentioned it about tribunal secretaries as a way of gaining experience. So that's our last question, open question to the audience, or to the panel, as to how to gain experience as a tribunal secretary. Where do you go and look for it?
Some arbitral institutions actually have, I know the Australian Centre for International Arbitration has a panel of secretariats for that reason, tribunal secretaries. Another way is if you, this is a little bit of networking, but, arbitrators are often members of lists, you know what I mean, and if you know people, through networks, if you're able to act as an assistant, for them in their legal matters, they might bring you in on an arbitration matter as well. That's always ways. It's often the case that senior counsel will have a student assistant who will research legal matters for them, and that can be a way in to get work as a tribunal secretary. Also at C.Arb Australia, we had an experience, I think a couple of years ago, where an experienced arbitrator was actually looking for someone to take on that role, and we advertised for them, and they just sort of keep on the lookout for those sorts of opportunities.
Yeah, to mention as well that C.Arb does run tribunal secretaries training courses together with institutions. As if you're part of the membership, you will get email blasts, invitations to join these courses. So that's one reason why you should sign up, especially if you're a student member. Now, with that, it leaves me only to thank Francis, Mahesh, and Vicky for a very engaging discussion. I do hope the audience had a very fruitful time listening and asking the questions you have. Like I said, we are always keen to share more about our experience at C.Arb. So please email us at memberservices@ciarb.org. And well, thank you everyone, and stay safe and have a great year ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.